Hello everyone, this is Solar B from the Clickteam forums, and I'm just going to be showing you a bit of Isolight. Now when you open the file, you'll see this, and as you can see, there's only a minimal amount of objects and actives in it, and this is just to keep the scale of it down. We can just jump right in, and you'll see that this is what we start off with. We've got all of the info up here. Pressing F1 will bring up the help, and you can see all the hotkeys here. You can also choose to scroll between the middle mouse button and the player. So using the middle mouse, we scroll it like this. If we press C, the plane will scroll with the player. You've also got a lot of useful info up here. So you've got the X, Y, and Z of your current position. You've also got the frame rate, you've also got the minimum FPS, and you've also got the update FPS. And the update FPS shows you the frame rate on the last update. Okay, so we can start creating, and it's very easy. Left click will place a block. You can even hold it down. Scrolling the middle mouse upwards will adjust the Z position, so the height. Now you can easily delete things, so you hold down the right mouse button and scroll down. Now you'll also see that you have a grid view down the bottom here. This shows you your current location. And this is especially helpful when you have a lot of objects. It'll also show you where things are based on the Z height of the reference object. So you can see. Now there's support for placing different types of blocks. So if we hold Control and scroll up, you can see that it changes the tile type up here. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. You'll notice that you've got the player light and you've also got the cursor light. Now these can be turned on or off. You can also enable and disable shadows for both of them, and also adjust the range. So we can do that. Now you can also adjust the color. You've got a nice little color palette. This is just an active, so if you actually want to change the color, you can just double click on this and let's say put in a different color right there. We can go back in and you'll see that it'll register the color right there. So those settings can be adjusted for the player and the cursor. We can also have ambient light. You can turn this on or off. I like to have a little bit of ambient light happening, but yeah, you can change it to whichever color you like in the palette. Of course, shadows and range are not active for the ambient light. So we can make a little bit easy level. So let's say we want to place some lights. Now this is also very simple, very straightforward. Go to the position where you'd want to place your light and press Control and click, and that'll create a light. Now you've got the same controls as you do for the player and cursor, so shadows, range, and of course color. Now you can place multiple lights and have them all be different colors, which is fantastic. You can, let's say we want to change these lights. We can select both of them using Shift, and we can then adjust the color and adjust the ranges, etc. Always remember to hit Apply, because having this panel open will show you a lot lower FPS than what you should have. So we hit Apply. Now, of course, the editor is equipped with saving and loading features, so we press K to save, and we will just type in your file name here and click Save. And then we should be able to open it up and press L, and there we go. Now, of course, you can see that everything is fully 3D, so we put everything here, and you see that shadows are 3D based. Now, you can also hide the UI, pressing the tilde key. You can hide the grid view, pressing the G key, and of course you can go full screen and to have a nice little preview of what your level will look like. There's a custom platform movement built in, which is very rudimentary, but of course this can be expanded upon as you wish. Everything's there though, so collisions and layer sorting, etc. It's a good example of how to do that. Now, of course, you probably wouldn't want to work with just white standard tiles. You'd want to be loading your own things in. So let's see how to do that. Now, this is all done from within Fusion, just for simplicity. Now, the first step to customizing is that you want to have a look at this. Values active right here. This active is used to perform a lot of the behind-the-scenes calculations for the engine. The first thing you'll want to modify if you're using a custom tile size is, of course, the tile size. So here it's 32, which is the default. And the next important value is the field size value. Here it's 20, which basically means it'll create a 20 by 20 plane. Another nice feature is programmed in some profiles. So profile 0 will be the default, the 20 by 20 plane in the middle of the screen. If we set profile to 1, you'll see that we get a nice full screen implementation, which is just a lot of tiles that take up the whole screen. Now, of course, if you're concerned about performance, the more tiles there are on screen, the lower the frame rate. So maybe if you're developing for mobile, or if you're developing like a nice little shadow sneaking game, you could set the profile to 2, and this makes you a plane here which will be quite good with performance. First, we want to change this active tile block. So we've got our first block being this block, and then the second block being the torch block, and this is just so we know what we're selecting. So the next thing you'll want to do is load in your custom tile. For the lighting to work, your block has to be split into 3 parts, the top, the left and the right wall. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll load in my top wall and make sure that the hotspot is at 1616. The top's going to be the same for the top tile, so let's just copy and paste that. The engine uses a separate system which uses the cubes for the ground plane, and the cubes for the ground plane are stored in the left direction here. We can load in our block. Now to do the walls, I load in my first wall, and load in my second wall. We'll make sure that the hotspot is 1616. Now, what we can do for the right wall is just copy these. And just flip them, like so. Now for the cubes for ground, I've actually got a different block, which is just a slightly different color for the floor. We can set the ambient lighting all the way to white, just so it's easier to edit. And let's go ahead and put some blocks in. Now switch to the torch block using Control, that, and there. Now let's add some lights. And select all of these lights. And maybe a nice orange with small range. Now, a few things to remember is because what you're basically seeing here is just a 2D plane, due to this, this tile is actually just this tile here. So you'll notice that, let's say when you do something like this, and then you do a column here, and then you erase it, you will be erasing this tile. But luckily there is the grid view, and that will show you where you would need to replace whatever needs to be replaced. So now the reason for this is just to make dynamic loading very efficient. So you'll notice that you can have many walls along a huge distance, and because it's only rendering this consistent tile plane, the only thing that will be rendered is what's on screen, which is loaded from the array. So when we go back here, all our blocks are still here. Now keep in mind for optimization that, like in any 3D engine, the more geometry there is, the more it'll affect performance. So just make sure if you've got a lot of geometry in this plane and a lot of lights, let's say, that you might want to turn the shadows off for lights, or just have less lights, depending on the performance that you're aiming for. Now, of course, you can also customize your character. So just by clicking on the IO player, you can choose whatever you want for this, but you'll have to program how the directions are handled in the code yourself. For the purposes of collision, the value that you're going to want to look at is the height Z value here. Now, if you have it to 2, this is for a larger height, so you can see that's not quite right. So let's choose that to 1. And yeah, we should be okay. You'll find that in the engine there's also the pathfinding example. And this is kind of cool. As you can see, the engine's just been stripped down to the bare bones. Now I've made a little custom level here that you can see. And it just uses the pathfinding object across a grid, but you can see that this is very effective. I can move multiple actives along a path. And there we go, very cool. So just an example of how you can use the grid system in the engine to code your own pathfinding or other movement. So hopefully that's it. Hopefully I've given you a bit of a rundown. There might be more videos like this to come that explore the inner workings of the engine. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and feel free to post on the forums or PM me with any questions.